Hi, I'm Sue Dietrich. I'm one of the directors at FAMH, and I'm so incredibly happy that you all could make it. I've heard wonderful things about the information we provided this morning from both our doctors, and I'm very, very excited to introduce our next speaker in long-term recovery. Lisa Simone is a very good friend of mine, a person in long-term recovery. She shares that journey with me. She is a mother of 4. She's a yogi. She's a Buddhist. She's the most badass recovery person that I know. She advocates every chance she gets. She is the National Communications Director here at Fresh Start Recovery Center. In 2013, she co-founded Faces and Voices of Recovery Canada, which is a national organization for advocacy and reducing stigma. She also, in 2013, I believe, started Recovery Day Calgary, was a co-founder of that. I don't know anybody, like I said, she's a good friend, so I can speak from the heart in saying I don't know anyone that walks recovery the way Lisa does, that has the passion that she does, and has the heart that she does. I am so grateful that she's here today. Without further ado, Lisa Simone.
Thank you, love. So good. Thanks. Well, I think that's pretty much all there is to know about me. Thank you, Sue, and thank you to FAMH for having me here today. It's pretty intimidating following 2 doctors and an MBA, but I'm here to share with you my lived experience, my process of being on the front line of addiction recovery, and a little bit about my journey through long-term recovery, or how I like to call it, long-term discovery. 2 weeks ago, I celebrated my 8th birthday, a milestone. It's most definitely a milestone. And 4 weeks ago, I buried my only brother to this disease. My brother's name was Scott Williams, and he's not just a statistic. He was 45 years old, a professional, a son, a brother, a beloved friend, and a father who left behind 2 children. He never reached out for help and found it harder to accept help when offered. Denial is real, and it is the most dangerous illusions of this disease. Addiction is the only disease that tells us that we don't have it. I was going to cancel this speaking opportunity as my grief and pain are overwhelming. However, equal to my pain is my desire to make a difference. Like Howard said, his goal is helping more people get into recovery, so is mine. My sponsor tells me that every time I go and speak, I only need to do 3 things. Number 1 is be myself, 2 is do my best, and 3 is practice the presence of God. So here goes. My name is Lisa Simone, and I'm a person in long-term recovery, which for me means I've not used alcohol or other drugs since August 20th, 2009. Recovery has given me purpose, helped me grow true self-worth. I'm a good mom, I'm kind and considerate of others, and I live a life in gratitude and watch beauty and miracles unfold constantly. My life continues to get better, and I continue to grow into the best version of myself. Life has its challenges, but the gift of recovery has strengthened my ability to be with it and deal with it rather than escape. I think, as Howard would say, I have good dopamine tenure. When I first stepped into the world of recovery and started to learn about addiction, one of the first things I was told was that alcohol and drugs were only a symptom of my disease. I did not understand this, as I felt that all the problems I ever encountered were because of my drinking and using. And I was like, oh my God, whoever is running this is getting away with telling people it's a disease. What made sense to me in those early moments of sobriety was that if I stopped drinking and using, that all my problems would be over. That it was as simple as removing substance use to correct the many pieces of my life that weren't hitting the mark. Obviously, that's not what happened. And I'm here today to share with you my story of active addiction, my journey of recovery and long-term discovery, and how my life is now. I will also add in some of the insights from the work I do here at Fresh Start as their National Communications Director, and some work that I do in recovery advocacy and the program that I use to keep me sober. So let's start with my story. My introduction to substances started early. I was 13 when I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol. Alcohol made me feel how I wanted to feel inside myself. It gave me freedom from my self-judging and busy brain. I felt like I was far more smart, funny, and interesting. I was soon ingesting amounts that would make me extremely sick the next day. Each time I woke from a night of drinking, I felt remorse, shame. I would wonder what had happened. And I would vow that if God could just get me through this, this would never happen again. As soon as I would feel better, I would forget that and start all over again. I was a natural athlete growing up, so in junior high, I was able to stay connected through sports and team fellowship. I was so good because of my height and maybe my cockiness that I was always put on the best lines because I could perform. This fact gave me the idea that at practices, I didn't really need to pay attention as I was already better than others. This backfired in high school as the teams look for skills, not just how you play. So of course, I did not make the first team I tried out. When I didn't make the team, I never tried out again. I then devoted my time to friends and partying. When I was 21, I met my first husband when I was waitressing at a bar. His name was Cameron. Cam was fun, kind, full of life, hardworking, came from a lovely family, and people loved to be around him. He loved to party, and it became part of what he did. He worked in the oil and gas sector and did much of his work in the southern region of the United States. Actually, we lived very close to where Dr. Westerman lived, in Houma, Louisiana. I moved there with him, and he was getting paid well, and we were addicted. First with alcohol, and then we were introduced in Louisiana to crack cocaine. It started out monthly, then weekly, and became totally out of control, where we would be smoking crack for days on end. We started to hit deeper and deeper bottoms when I found out that I was pregnant, and thank goodness the drug stopped. By the grace of God, Cam was transferred up north the next day, and we didn't have access to the connections we had. I had a great pregnancy, and we delivered a beautiful, healthy baby boy named Brayden. I believe that we are now in the family life stage, and that our party life was over. Makes sense, right? I was so wrong. We eventually moved back to Texas, and the crack use came back. It had its grip on Cam, and once in front of me, I couldn't resist the strong urge to also escape. In October of 1999, our son Brayden had just turned 2 when my world came crashing down, when I woke up after a night of drinking and using, and found Cam dead. My world spiraled into pain, grief, and hopelessness. Brayden lost his dad that day, but he also lost me to the bottle. You would think that I would quit drinking and quit using as soon as he died, but the fact was I couldn't cope with the reality of what life brought to me. I was angry. It was unfair. And I stayed in that pain and chaos for the next year and a half, until I knew that I needed to change or I was gonna die too. January 1st, 2001, I reached out and I sought help from a local 12-step fellowship. Getting sober, getting real, coming out of the delusion of my life was a very painful journey and dark, as many of the emotions I ignored after Cam's death started to surface. I was forced to deal with them. There was nowhere to run. So I stuck with it and I did the work. I did get my life back on track, and I felt like I changed everything about myself. I embraced recovery somewhat, but I also ventured down the road of personal development. I got a boyfriend, went to church, did me some yoga, did some A Course in Miracles, found some mentors. I thought those were all the keys to transformation. I became a new woman. I was so different that I thought that somehow my relationship to drinking would be different too. So I tried it. I was wrong. That decision took me to the world of drinking and then the new world of prescription pill use. I went back out for 7 years. Along the way, Chris and I got married, we blended our families, we had 2 more children, and I stopped drinking and using only while I was pregnant. I built a new life for myself, but I was still the great master of disguise. While everything looked great on the outside, the inside of me was just barely holding it together. Now, when I tried to stop, I couldn't. My disease had progressed. I hated who I was, but I was so afraid of changing. When anyone decides to give up their addiction, we are agreeing to change. In fact, everything needs to change. The benefits of such a dramatic alteration or course are wonderful, but it's also the great step into the great unknown. Change is rerouting. From a brain perspective, those neural pathways are formed, and it's going to take work, consistency, and concentration to form new habits. When I came back into recovery this time around, I just wanted the habits. Sorry, I just wanted the answers. Tell me how to stay sober. Nothing more, no definitions, no platitudes. I just wanted the pain and self-loathing to go away. I did not expect that what I would find is a lifelong process called recovery. What I know now is this is a disease we cannot do alone. No one can do recovery for us, but we cannot do it alone. I was diligent about doing my work to stay sober and find freedom for myself. The step 3 prayer was on repeat for many a year. Freedom from the bondage of self. This disease of addiction is rooted in language like my, me, and mine. But day after day of staying on the beam, small miracles would come into my life, like some humility. And humility is a funny word. I never would have thought humility was a positive aspect. But humility is not thinking less of myself, it is thinking of myself less. I felt called to be of service, which led me to Fresh Start. I worked my charm and I got me a job. I started as their admin assistant at the front desk. We are in the midst of moving from our Abbeydale location in the Northeast, which was a repurposed senior center, to the purpose-built building we are in today. The building has been a blessing to the men, the alumni, the community, and the staff. The gymnasium we are in today serves many purposes. Today we hold a summit, but most days we use it to host alumni birthdays, gratitudes, monthly community sober dances, volleyball and basketball tournaments with other local centers, and we also even do some local MMA instruction. Upstairs, we have a meditation room where the men meet 3 times a day to connect, pray, and reflect. We have a games room and a movie theater in the basement. Oh, and our favorite, the fitness center. We will do tours this afternoon. Brad and Ian are on hand if you'd like a tour. If today doesn't work, the coffee's always on. Come see us. We'll give you a tour through the building. 95% of the staff, these people up here, are in recovery, with a combined recovery time of over 335 years. We, Fresh Start team and staff, are celebrating our 25th year this year, and I'm so grateful to represent. After being their administration assistant with enthusiasm and grace, I was promoted to their communications director. This is what I've been doing for the last 5 years. It was not a defined position before. I say I've been making this whole thing up. Well, really, God has. I believe I'm guided because I show up, and He puts the right people and the opportunities in my path to make a difference. 2.5 years ago, I was faced with leaving my job when my husband got a job opportunity in Niagara Falls, Ontario. I did not want to quit my job, but a little voice inside me said, trust. And so I did. I thought the little voice meant a great job was waiting out there, another wicked job altogether, but this unfolded in every way better. My executive director, Stacey Peterson, who you probably met this afternoon, saw this as an opportunity rather than an obstacle. An opportunity to get the message of recovery and Fresh Start to more provinces and people. He made my communications role national, and we have set up a satellite office that I work from out in Niagara Falls. I fly back every few months. We couldn't have made a better scenario as I get to do what I love, expand Fresh Start reach, and help make a difference in the lives of others. Part of my communications role is advocacy on a local and a national level. In 2013, a few of us formed a grassroots national movement called Favor Canada, Faces and Voices of Recovery Canada. We are mentored and guided by some passionate recovery advocates in the US. We facilitate a national conversation for Canadians in recovery, their friends, families, and allies, as well as those still suffering. We are the voice for people that can't speak it yet. We are committed to eliminating stigma, shaping public policy, and educating people by bringing recovery into the consciousness of Canadians. We accomplish this through the promotion and celebration of recovery, demonstrating recovery as a positive healing force, and by being the voice of those who have not yet found theirs. We support all pathways to recovery, and we support initiatives such as Recovery Day and having September declared Recovery Month. Our small team at Favor has facilitated Recovery Day Canada calls from the beginning, encouraging and fostering new cities. Recovery Day started in 2012 with 2 cities. After helping foster and set up new cities, we now have, I think, 36 cities this year. So it's a start. Recovery Day Calgary is in its 5th year, and I've been part of the organizing each year, even from Ontario. This year was a challenge because of my loss and grief, and I was devastated. So Wendy, the little sparrow that's been here taking pictures, she had stepped away from organizing the last couple years, and as soon as she found out about my brother, she literally just took over the calls and the organizing and gave me space to grieve and heal. I'm so grateful for your friendship and dedication to this cause. Recovery Day happens tomorrow from 12 to 3 at Shaw Millennium Park. The band Econoline Crush, some of you may remember. The lead singer, Trevor, is in recovery, so he's going to be not only playing for us, he's also going to be sharing a message of hope. As well as we have our friend Bob Marrier coming in from Montreal to speak, and some powwow dancers. Well, who here has been to Recovery Day? Show of hands, don't be shy. Join us tomorrow. You know what? We have 36 community partners representing our city's recovery community. There's detox centers, there's yoga, there's recovery coaching, there's treatment centers. There's a whole lot of information and people that are doing good work. You know, Mayor Nenshi had an interesting point that it's so hard to navigate the system. I've worked in this business in recovery and recovery advocacy for 7 years, and I find it hard to navigate sometimes. Because I'm out there as a face and voice of recovery, many people come to me and they're like, where do I turn for help? And I give them a list, and I wish them well. And I know it's a tough journey because there's wait lists. Because detoxes, you can show up at detox and you get turned away. You know, I think that the more we do together, the more we can help the next generation and the next generation. My boy Brayden, me and Cam's child, Brayden was 2 when his dad died. He just turned 20 yesterday. And you know, he had a lot of situations happen to him, the death of his dad, my addiction, my recovery, all of that impacted him. And I say my recovery because he has an emotional capacity far beyond his age, because I was willing to show him who I really was. In all the glory, all the beauty, and all the terror. And it's given him a really real experience of life. He's in his 2nd year of U of C. He's in pure math, of all things, and wants to be a math professor. He's highly intellectual, and he's highly emotionally intellectual. So he walks on water for me. I'm very proud of him. We know that over 5 million Canadians are in long-term recovery from addiction, but there are many more who need recovery supports. From a financial standpoint, untreated addiction costs Canadians approximately $40 billion every year. Some say $52 billion. It costs a lot. And from a human standpoint, more than 8 out of 10 Canadians who need services for addiction to alcohol and other drugs are not receiving the help they need to get well. So what are the current options for addiction recovery support? Where can one turn to for help? I look at my own path as like a choose-your-own adventure book. Remember those when we were kids? Flip to page 83 if you want to do A or B. That's kind of how my recovery is. I say that 12-step fellowships got me sober, and for me, continue to grow, I needed outside support as well as a program and people that resonated deeply with me spiritually. I've tried many things, and I keep trying new things. I've tried counseling, 12-step fellowships, mentorships, sweat lodges, energy work, yoga, mindfulness, and Buddhism. All these things have contributed to my current state. I've been blessed to work with great sponsors and mentors. My previous sponsor was a monk. He would tell me all the time, Lisa, hold your mind. I'm like, what does that even mean? I have learned from practicing now that this means practice the pause. When I feel a situation charging me up, it is my sign to step away from my emotions into the observer to see it objectively. Or my now sponsor tells me, first thought, wrong. Second thought, better. Third thought, even better. But this takes practice. It is difficult to hold the mind and the tongue when we feel angry, fearful, or the egos need to be right. I've learned that when I do hold my mind, I am sitting in the seat of consciousness. I am able to respond rather than react. It's one of the hardest things to do, but the only option is to sit in it and move through the thoughts and emotion of actually what's going on. I think this helps change our brain. I think this helps make new neural pathways and forming new directions. Craving and aversion are the touchstones to addiction. Craving a different feeling or experience than what I have, or averting the feeling or experience in front of me. I do not like anything that hurts. None of us do. It's our human instinct to go towards pleasure and to turn away from anything that hurts. To the addicted brain, this is tenfold. Robert, my monk, was with me and taught me many things. Like the time I was struggling so bad and stuck in my head, and he said, have you heard about the secret mantra? I'm like, what's the secret mantra? I leaned in, waiting for this very wise answer, and he said, it's okay. I'm like, it's okay? It's okay? It's okay. Present moment. I will always be grateful for Robert's teachings. Eventually, the next thing came in for me, and this has been one of the ways that I strengthen my mind, my body, and ultimately my spirit in recovery. Refuge Recovery is a mindfulness-based addiction recovery program and community that utilizes Buddhist philosophy as the foundation of the recovery process. It uses Buddhism's Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path as its main inspiration and guiding philosophy. And I share this with you not so you can change programs, but you can just get curious, see what's a fit, say, that's a different way to look at it. The core philosophy of Refuge Recovery is based on renunciation. Renunciation is the practice of abstaining from harmful behaviors. They also practice abstinence. We believe that the recovery process truly begins when renunciation is established and maintained. We also understand that imperfection and humility are part of the process. Even when we refrain from the primary drug or behavior, addiction at time manifests in other behaviors like Raju spoke about. Abstinence alone is not recovery. However, it is the beginning for some of us. Those who maintain abstinence but fail to examine the underlying causes and conditions are not on the path to recovery. They are simply stopping the surface manifestations of addiction that will inevitably resurface in other ways. The four truths of recovery are, number one, addiction creates suffering. So we take stock of all the suffering we have experienced and caused as addicts. Number two is the cause of addiction is repetitive craving. We investigate the causes and conditions that lead to addiction and begin the process of letting go. Number three, recovery is possible. We come to understand that recovery is possible and take refuge in the path that leads to the end of addiction. Four, the path to recovery is available. We engage in the process of the Eightfold Path that leads to recovery. And I'd like to expand and share on the Eightfold Path. It doesn't have to be taken in order. In fact, all factors need to be developed and applied simultaneously. It is a practice. And to truly break free of addiction, the Eight Folds of recovery must be constantly maintained and thought of. I think when I look at difficulties now, like the death of my brother, I didn't want to drink or use. I put into practice the Eightfold Path because it's reliable. I know that I'm going to be safe and I'll be able to have right thought and right understanding in order to feel and process appropriately. So the Eightfold Path, and number one is understanding. We come to know that everything is ruled by cause and effect. The four truths are an ongoing practice. In this step, we gain insight into the impermanent, unsatisfactory, and impersonal nature of life. Life is not personal. When I believe that, my life is so much easier. And forgiveness is possible and it's necessary. Noah Levine, the founder of Refuge Recovery, really taught me a lot about forgiveness. And I struggled with the 12 steps about forgiving some acts that I felt like I was saying it was okay. So he says maybe a start to forgiveness is saying, I forgive you as much as I can at this present moment. It's a start. Number 2 is intention. We renounce greed, hatred, and delusion. We train our minds to meet all pain with compassion and all pleasure with non-attached appreciation. This was hard for me because I'm like, if I'm having fun, I want to ride this fun out. But I would find that when I started to do the Eightfold Path, is I would see that I would already start to mourn the loss of this joy. So now I train my mind to just have a non-attached appreciation for it, which means that I can still be in the moment and present, knowing that all things are impermanent. We cultivate generous, kind, and compassionate wishes for all living beings. We practice honesty and humility, and we live with integrity. Number 3 is communication and community. We take refuge in the community as a practice wise communication and to support others on their path. We practice being honest, wise, and careful with our communications, asking for help from the community, and allowing others to guide us through the process. We practice open honesty, humility about the difficulties and successes we've experienced. The Buddha would say that they call it Sangha, that community is everything. We grow in community. We laugh, we love, we hurt, but we're better together in community. Number 4 is action and engagement. We do our best with purifying our actions, letting go of behaviors that cause harm. Number 5 is livelihood and service. We try to be service to others wherever possible, using our time, energy, and resources to help create positive change. We work towards securing a positive experience in our income and our livelihood. Number 6 is effort and energy. We commit to the daily discipline practices of meditation, yoga, exercise, wise actions, kindness, forgiveness, generosity, compassion, appreciation, and the moment-to-moment mindfulness of feelings, emotions, thoughts, and sensations. It's a hard one. Through effort and energy, we develop the skillful means of knowing how to apply the appropriate meditation or action to any given circumstance. For number 7's mindfulness and meditations, we develop wisdom through practicing formal mindfulness meditation. It's almost like concentrating our mind, like Raju had said. This leads to seeing clearly and healing the root causes and conditions that lead to the suffering of addiction. We practice present time awareness in all aspects of our life, and we take refuge in the present. Number 8, concentration. We develop the capacity to focus the mind on a single object, such as the breath. Noah always says, be aware that you're breathing in, be aware that you're breathing out. Really focuses you to come back into present. Training the mind through the practices of loving kindness, compassion, and forgiveness to focus on the positive qualities we seek to uncover. We utilize concentration at times of temptation to craving, to abstinence from acting unwisely. This is my practice. I've also found solace and growth in yoga. In April, I went back to school and got my 200-hour yoga teacher training, and in May, my yoga of 12-step recovery. I'll be teaching the residents here soon as well in Niagara Falls, where I just purchased a yoga studio. And since I moved there, I've actually been calling what we do out there Fresh Start on the Falls. It's kind of catchy. And the yoga studio that we bought is actually right on the water. So I've told Stacy that we need to put an office in there and actually be Fresh Start on the Falls. These are some helpful concepts. They're not definitions like the ASAM definition, but these are really helpful for me to feel what addiction is. Noah says, addiction is the repetitive process of habitually satisfying cravings to avoid, change, or control the seemingly unbearable conditions of the present moment. This process of craving and indulgence provides a short-term relief, but causes long-term harm. It is almost always a source of suffering for both the addict and those who care about the addict. Recovery is a process of healing the underlying conditions that lead to addiction. It is establishing and maintaining the practice of abstaining from satisfying the cravings for the substances and behaviors that we have already become addicted to. Recovery is also the ability to inhabit the conditions of the present reality, whether pleasant or unpleasant. So when we speak about a refuge is a safe place. It's what we connect our mind to. A place of protection, a place that we go in times of need, kind of like a shelter. We're always taking refuge in something. Drugs, alcohol, food, sex, money, or relationships with people have been a refuge for many of us. Before addiction, such refuges provide temporary feelings of comfort and safety, but at some point we cross the line into addiction. And the substances or behaviors that were once a refuge inevitably became a dark and lonely, repetitive cycle of searching for comfort as we wandered through an empty life. Thank you for listening. This is the end of my talk, and I just want to end with a Buddhist prayer of loving kindness. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be safe from inner and outer dangers. May you be healthy in both body and mind, and may you find peace and be truly happy. Thank you.